Hello, everybody. Welcome back. This is Brian and Brian for Breaking Down Security, episode 13.
13. Yes.
Lucky number 13.
Well, today's topic is, a little bit unlucky because we're talking compliance and PCI in particular, but a lot of these controls can apply to anything. We've got this Verizon report, which comes out every year. It's the Verizon PCI report 2014.
Yep, which really just details everything that happened in 2013. You're not going to get any kind of prognostications out of it other than the previous year.
Right. And remember when we talked to Kevin Johnson and I asked him what overall, how well we were with security in general?
Yes.
And he said, quote, "The state of security scares the crud out of me." Okay? And that kind of falls in line with, this report or what's come out of it, right?
Yeah. I guess the overall idea is it wasn't as bad as it was the previous year. It's getting better.
We see slight improvement from
yes,
almost nothing to a little bit better, right?
Yeah. Exactly.
Well, I guess that's good news. If it's better than going back down.
Yeah.
But yeah, let's talk about PCI. I mean, there's 12 requirements. 12.
Yes.
Yeah, 12 requirements. There's firewall configuration, vendor supplied defaults, protect stored cardholder data, encrypt the transmission on public networks. Then you've got antivirus. Number 6 is maintain secure applications. Number 7 is access control. Number 8 is passwords, user IDs. Number 9 is restrict physical access. Then you have monitoring and logging. Number 11, you have testing, which includes pen testing and vulnerability assessments. And number 12 is policies. Pretty much most of compliance standards have these 12 things in them, right?
Yes.
It's a good guideline overall.
Yeah, I think the only thing that there's only one part that I think, because 2.0 is going away. If you're starting on a new assessment starting in 1 January 2015, you're going to have to start using the new 3.0 standard. There are some changes to that, one of which, one of the big ones was, vendor devices. I believe POS devices, there have to be additional controls put on those to make sure that they're tamper-proof or they have not been tampered with.
Yeah.
But for this year, I guess the last 2.0 report from Verizon is pretty scary. I mean, Verizon starts out by saying, hey, here's what we did. Here's the methodology we took from 4 industries, being hospitality, retail, financial services, and they have a rather broad category called other. I don't know what that means. They took 8 of the companies they took out of those, 84.2% are actually class 1 or level 1 card processors, which means I think it's like 1 million transactions or something a year.
I think it has to do with how much money passes through, right?
Really?
Yeah.
Okay. Because I know that the company we work for is definitely a level 1 processor, but okay. I thought it was the amount of transactions.
We'll have to look that up. I thought it was dollar amount.
Yeah.
That makes sense. So, wouldn't it always be dollar amount?
That's
you
true.
You could do one transaction for $1 billion.
So level 1, okay, so it's regardless of acceptance, has over 6 million Visa transactions per year. Any merchant that Visa at its sole discretion determines should meet level 1 to minimize the risk of the Visa. Okay, so it's actually worse. It's like you do at least 6 million Visa transactions, or you could do one transaction through Visa, and they think it's important enough to make you a level 1.
At their discretion.
Because that's what it said. Any merchant that Visa at its discretion determines should meet level 1 merchant requirements. So you don't necessarily have to have 6 million processes. If you're Amazon and you don't only do 5.8 million that year, you're still a level 1 according to Visa.
Okay.
Wow, that's pretty cool. I did not know that.
Well, in the report, it says that it has a graph that shows the number of, the amount lost to fraud, and the graph is polynomial. It just keeps going up at a faster rate since the year 2000. I thought that was pretty striking.
Well, I guess they couldn't figure out how much was actually done in 2013 yet, because this is the 2014 report. So, I mean, in 2012, they had, about $11.5 billion in credit card fraud. So I'm guessing we're going to find out that 2013 was a banner year for credit card fraud.
Right.
I'm thinking you're going to see more around the $14 to $15 billion range. I mean, they haven't even figured out how much damage Target has lost, or Neiman Marcus, or Michael's, or any of those other. Remember, Michael Goff said there were several other Sears, probably. He said, because they'd had some credit card fraud too. So it'll be interesting.
I don't think those have come out yet because they're still trying to figure out, where these stolen credit cards came from,
or where the leak is happening and how much has leaked. That kind of the ramifications.
Yeah, they found out they're out there. They just don't know where they came from.
What I would like to know is hard numbers, because I mean they keep using percentages, but I don't know 11% of what. Because in the report on page 6, they said 11% of all companies are fully compliant. Okay, so 11% of what? Did they take 100 companies and 11 of them are compliant? I mean, obviously that didn't happen, but I mean, it would be nice if we could say, okay, they did 10,000 companies and 1,100 of them were fully compliant. Whereas, you got them poor bastards over there. There's only 95.6% of companies made that. So there's 4.3% out there that can't freaking do anything. They can't get past 3 of the requirements. Wow.
Yeah, I don't know.
Now, I mean, granted,
maybe it's their first try.
And of course, these could be their 1s, 2s, 3s, and 4s. So, I mean, some of these 95.6, of the 4% that can't make it past 3 controls is probably Joe's baitshop.com, who is a level 4 who just calls up PCI and goes, yeah, we're secure. It's cool. We got a firewall, Linksys router. It's cool.
We did our self-assessment. We're good.
That's right. We filled it out on the back of the card. So
yeah, 289 controls.
That's a lot, dude.
Yeah.
That is a 289.
Lot. That's why people are scared of PCI. There's 289 things you got to do, right?
Yeah. Yeah, well, see, we talked about this before the podcast, though. It seems like in places, PCI kind of gives you a little bit of leash to, let you go.
Yep.
And then, like, for instance, the 8.5 section where they're talking about passwords. There's no, hey, set up a password policy that makes sense. They're like, you will set a password policy. It will be 90 days to change passwords. It will be a minimum of 7 characters. It will be alphanumerics used. You have to use 4 on the history. It just seems like on some of these, they're real generic, like you have to do a pen test. Okay, cool. What's a pen test? What's the criteria that says you did a successful pen test?
Or Bill, come here. Let's do a pen test, dude.
Yeah, or what is it? Section 2 is about firewall audits. You must do a firewall audit. Okay, cool. What denotes a successful firewall audit?
Let me make.
They don't say that. They don't say, you must look at every firewall, every source, put that somewhere, justify everything. These must be stored somewhere for further.
Right. Some are just generic. Hey, do something, and others are really specific.
Yeah, which, I mean, in the report, Verizon is quick to mention that because they had a whole section about, hey, these people are, there's a lot of criticism about PCI, and there were a couple things that I thought was funny, because one of them was like, the criticism is PCI doesn't address the dynamic threat environment. And they go in and they say, PCI 3.0 makes a clear effort to position itself as a guide or a vehicle rather than a destination. Well, when you get real specific like that, I see that as more of a destination than a guide or vehicle.
Sure.
Because I checked PCI 3.0, those password requirements are still in there.
Yeah. It doesn't seem like a guide.
Yeah, that's not a guide. That's a, hey, you're going to get there. That's the destination. You will get there. And the other part I thought was funny in that same section was PCI compliance shouldn't be seen as a burdensome annual ritual that the organization must endure. I nearly choked on my water when I saw that.
Yeah, because it's dreaded. It's like tax day.
Oh, it's worse than tax day. Yeah, because it seems like that's all we do right now. just to try to get PCI requirements. Everything is, we wield PCI as a hammer to move change. And they talk about that in here too. One of the end parts is how to use PCI requirements as an enforcer for change. I don't say an enforcer, as a help to make change in the system.
Okay, 2 points on that. Number one, you said we. You mean we as in the security community, right?
Yeah.
Are focused on PCI.
Well, no,
right
the
now?
compliance weasels who need, help with that kind of stuff.
Okay.
They wield that like a hammer.
Well, I kind of see compliance as an opportunity, right? An opportunity to the kind of tools that you really need, right?
Mm-hmm.
Or like, for example, Tripwire claims that they help you with 11 out of the 12 requirements. 11 out of the 12.
Really?
And so you could go to the business and say, you know what? We really need Tripwire because it'll help us on 11 of the 12 PCI requirements. Mm-hmm. I don't know, I'm just making it up, 289 controls. Maybe it only does, 278 controls. Yeah. But one out of each, of the 11 it's claiming. I don't know. I'm just making that up. But you can really use PCI as, a vehicle to get better or get more financial help in the realm of security in general.
Sure.
Right? You see that?
Yeah. I mean, I would imagine the only thing Tripwire can't do is write your policies for you in Section 12.
Yeah.
Yeah. You can't have Tripwire write you a password acceptance policy. That might be the only way that it doesn't help you with that. We're not endorsing Tripwire. It's just maybe something that we use at our office from time to time.
They're not giving us any money.
Yeah,
so
they're not. Yeah.
Why would we?
Yeah. But, the other thing is to get 11 of those 12 domains covered by Tripwire, you're probably going to pay a ton of money for that ability because you're going to have to buy every little bell and whistle. It's like Tivoli.
I don't know how much it is, but I'm sure it's pretty expensive. Yeah. I think it's by host you pay.
Wow. Yeah, it's like Tivoli or Netcool or something. IBM comes in. Oh yeah, we can get you this, this, and this. Oh, you want that? Yeah, that's going to be extra. You want? Oh yeah, that's going to be extra too. A lot of these things are, we'll help you get to 11 of 12 on the PCI, but you're going to, you're going to be a Tripwire shop, pretty much. You're going to, everything you do, I'm sure they have a lovely email client as well.
You're going to put a crap load of eggs in that basket.
Exactly. Which is...
But, you don't have to have Tripwire. You can do other things.
Yeah. I mean, there's even open source stuff that you can use that'll help you get to that same, that same level.
OpenVOS.
OpenVOS. Yes. Yeah, we've been using that recently to pretty good effect. That's really nice.
We as in the security community?
Yes, we as in the security community.
I thought so.
Uh-huh.
So, yeah, you can use compliance as an opportunity to better secure your environment through tools, through helping with finances. Another complaint was focus on compliance hinders the comprehensive security posture.
Yep.
Did you see that one?
Yeah. People are worried about compliance so much that they don't worry about security. Yeah.
Well, again, I think, adhering to a compliance standards kind of forces you to do the right thing.
Yeah.
If you're not PCI compliant, I guess the penalty is you don't get as much money per transaction.
Well, doing all these audits, checking log files, doing policy updates, making sure change management's working properly, for a compliance standpoint, that takes a lot of people. And especially if you've got a huge organization with, 2-3 data centers all over the country, you need a goodly amount of people to be able to do that. And if you're understaffed, it can also seem sometimes that all you're doing is PCI compliance. There's only so many hours in the day where you can be doing compliance objectives. You can only do so many audits. So either you get more people or you get more automation. And with automation, you're going to look less at those things. Like if you're automating log files or, automating the audits to make sure that you're only seeing the naughty stuff.
Yeah.
But again, automation takes money. So it's like you either pay to hire somebody to do it for you or to have that pool of people to help you out with other projects, which can also make the company more productive. Or you buy a shiny box that goes bing, that does one job or two jobs, and you don't have another additional resource to help you out with something else along the road.
I like those out-of-the-box tools where you open up the box and you plug it in and it works, right?
Oh, you mean like the ones that have insecure configurations, like they mentioned down here in the report?
What? It says 50% of companies were not compliant with requirement number 2, which is vendor-supplied defaults. I mean, how easy is that? I mean, you get an application and you make sure that you change the default password, the default settings, all that stuff to comply with PCI. I mean, that seems easy as long as you do the work up front. Only 50% passed that. What the hell? I
love it because they said 51.5% of companies complied with 2.2.2b, indicating organizations still find it challenging to provide valid business justifications for the use of insecure services, daemons, protocols, and presenting documentation for it. So you've got roughly half the companies out there still using FTP, unencrypted. Well, we don't know why we need it, but it's going to cost, it's going to take too long to implement something new, or
our customer requires it.
Our customer requires
we have to use it,
and we don't have any documentation about it. We just kind of use it. It's something we've always been using. So fail,
Mainframes don't use encryption, right?
No, they don't. I liked page 15 where they had the top and bottom 20. I thought that was quite telling. They first started out as 98% complying with Control 2.4. And, 2.4 is basically making sure that your shared host provider is fully compliant with PCI.
Oh, well, it's marketplace driven, right?
Well, sure.
If it's not, then get another one.
Well, that's true, but the problem is they were only 98% complying. So some poor bastard out there using a shared host provider is not compliant. So, it could be a medical, there could be somebody hosting in his garage for some hospital or something, and he's not following all the necessary compliance. And it's not that hard. I looked it up. All they need to do is, well, actually, it's really freaking, depending on how big it is, they were talking about, making sure that environments were segregated, that all the apps were running on a specific user and not as a privileged user.
Well, it's hard for the vendor, right? But not for the person, not for the vendee. Is that the proper term? I mean, I guess 2%, they say, well, I'm ignorant, so whatever, I'll get better next time.
Man,
maybe that was the increase that we saw between 2012 and 2013.
Could be. Well,
we went from 4% ignorant to 2% ignorant.
Yeah. Yeah, that's I would not want to find my shared hosting provider protecting my credit card data not be fully, it's probably something like, documentation, like they don't keep proper documentation on policies or something. I would love to actually interview somebody who's a shared hosting provider who doesn't have all the necessary stuff. I'd like to meet the 2% that don't do that and find out what the underlying cause was. So let's see, what was some of the other ones that were popular in the top 20 most compliant? 8.5, section 8.5.10 was another big one, which I think was the passwords, which is pretty easy. I mean, you've got about half a dozen or a dozen controls for passwords. Yeah, see, 8.5, let's see, where does that start? 8.5.9, change passwords every 90 days. Minimum of 7 characters, 8.5.10, 8.5.11, alphanumerics, 8.5.12, do not allow an individual to submit a new password, same as 4 he's last used. Lockout after 6 attempts. See, these are the destinations. I mean, you're going to do that. That is a minimum requirement that you've got to meet. And if you do that, you've got a dozen done already.
A dozen out of the 290. But, I mean, some of those I don't agree with, and I've said that before on our Password podcast.
Yes.
And whatever, okay, upper, lower number special.
Yeah.
Sure, I can do that.
Yeah.
I can force that policy on everyone.
Now some of them do make sense. Maybe session require idle for more than 15 minutes. But even then, some of that's hard to do. I mean, VPN connections aren't, they don't normally shut themselves off after 15 minutes if you're trying to do something. I have a Bob story where Bob told me he was trying to get the VPN to shut off after so many minutes, and it's not working because there's so many heartbeats that go on. You've got HTTP heartbeats, you've got, TLS heartbeats, which hopefully is getting fixed. And, every protocol has a heartbeat. And as long as you send a no-op or, a PWD or something, if you run an FTP, then you can stay logged in.
Hey, I run VMstat, and that keeps me logged in for, until I'm ready to go home.
See, you're part of the problem. You're not part of the solution. You're not part of the problem.
Not a problem, as long as I know I'm logged in, right?
You are part of...
I'm just trying to keep my session alive. It's like a heartbeat.
Yeah.
There's no heart bleed to OpenSSH.
No, OpenSSL, yeah. I found out OpenSSH doesn't use SSL libraries. Who knew? Well, apparently I didn't, but I do now. In the bottom 20, though, I was not surprised to find that pen tests were nearly at the bottom. It actually was at the bottom, 39.6%.
What do you mean at the bottom? What, do you mean it's less people are compliant with pen testing?
Yes, it is the one that people do not do the most of, which is a pen test. And I've heard a lot of podcasts. I listen to Paul Security Weekly. I listen to Risky Business, and they've had people on talking about these things. A lot of companies, they hire these people who are super cheap. They come in, they run, Nmap and Nessus, and they say, oh yeah, you're good. Or, they really, it's not what would be considered a pen test. A pen test takes time and it takes money, and depending on the type of box that you plan on doing, whether it be a clear box or a black box test, you're going to pay a good portion of money to have a proper pen test done. And there are a bunch of them out there. Our buddy Mr. Kevin Johnson, Secure Ideas, his company does pen tests.
Yep.
They don't just come in and run Nmap and run vulnerability scanner and say, here you go. I mean, a lot of companies may checkbox that and think, oh, yeah, that is a pen test, but...
Okay, well, I got to say, most companies don't want a good pen tester. They take the ostrich approach to security. Dip your head in the sand.
Really?
And if you can't see it, then it's not there, and you don't have to pay for it.
Now, you were talking... That was the speaker for the ISSA you went to, Austin ISSA, right? What he mentioned this? Who was the guy? Because I didn't...
You're putting me on the spot. His name was Mike.
Mike
Webb?
Mike Webb. I think that was a pitcher for the Philadelphia Phillies back in the 80s or something. Anyway, he said that that most companies will take the ostrich approach because it's cheaper to do it that way, basically? Or they don't want to be secure because it...
No, it's not that they don't want to be secure. It's that they kind of like see no evil, hear no evil, right? If I don't know that I have a cross-site scripting vulnerability, then I don't have to fix the cross-site scripting vulnerability, and I don't have to pay to fix the cross-site scripting vulnerability. So please do not have Kevin Johnson come and do my pen test. Have Bill's automated pen test program do it, because...
It's like, it's like the people down in Louisiana. Every year they didn't, repair their infrastructure, and then Katrina came through, and then they had to replace it because everything was busted.
Yeah.
Every year they saved a couple of $100 million by not doing it, and then they spent a couple of $1 billion shoring it back up after it was done because Katrina came in and made it even worse.
Yeah, but
Target's seeing the same thing now because I wouldn't say they were negligent and, didn't do what was necessary to secure their data, but there might have been some fingers in the ears and la, 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 and I'm not hearing this, and then all of a sudden it happens, and they're like, oh, well, now we've got to fix it.
Yeah, but, Wall Street lives quarter to quarter, right? It's better
That's
to
true.
save $100 million this quarter, put off to tomorrow what you could do today. That's how you make money this quarter.
So the bottom 6 of the bottom 20, the most uncompliant ones were all the pen testing and the application security stuff. If you are not doing a proper pen test, it looks like the majority of the nation is right behind you and your lack of proper pen testing.
And the application security would be make sure that your developers are writing good code, doesn't have, like memory leaks, that kind of crap, right?
Yeah.
Maintain secure apps.
Yeah, 11.2.1a is quarterly internal scans. That one's, that one can be
that
hard.
One's high? I mean, or low.
That one's very low. Yeah, that's like 284 out of 289 on like the most popular.
Hey, that's free. That's where OpenVOS comes in, right?
You could use OpenVOS. The interesting thing is, they say you've got to run internal and external vulnerability scans quarterly and after any significant change in the network. And
yeah,
who does it? Because it says it must be performed by a validated or qualified internal resource or qualified third party. So this is one of those things where interpretation kind of comes into play. What is a qualified external third party? Could a software suite be considered the third party?
It's kind of vague. I think we need lawyers for that.
Well, yeah. Can you have the guy walking the dog down the street walk into your building? Because according to 11.2.1c, it says, if applicable, organizational independence of the tester, not required to be a QSA or an ASV. So that tells me that my daughter, who's 8 years old, can walk into our office in Austin, click scan, and we're good, depending on your interpretation of that.
As long as she's qualified.
She doesn't have to be qualified.
It says qualified.
It says, if applicable, organizational independence of the tester exists. What is a qualified third party? It says it doesn't have to be an ASV or a QSA. What does that mean? What does qualified mean?
Lenny, my lawyer, he can answer that for
me. Lenny, really? Yeah. Lenny. Okay. So, there's a lot to get, and this is another issue that I've got with PCI. It's like, like the password. I keep bringing up the password thing. People are going to hate me for it. But, and then you've got this qualified third party, but he doesn't have to be an ASV or QSA. Does he have to have a CISSP? Does he have to have a bachelor's in CS? Or if all he's doing is pushing a button to say scan, it could be anybody.
Yeah, kind of vague.
It was a nice little report. I mean, there's way more going on in here. I mean, they talk about why different requirements are important. I did take note with some of the math that they had in here. They said 85.2% of companies were compliant with the companies were compliant with 85.2% of controls. But it looks like the way they did the math was to give a like example. They took a class of 20 students and graded on a curve. But instead of the people who busting the curve, let's say you had 3 students that busted the curve.
Yeah.
So they take them out of the equation and they're like 5% of the class or something. Oh, it's not 5% of the class. So let's say it's 100 students and 5 people make it. So 5% of the class busted the curve. So they take them out and take the remaining 95 students and average the scores to find out, okay, the average student, average 95 out of 100 made a 75%. And then, of course, the other 5% over here get added on to that 5%, and the class made an average of 80%. That doesn't make any sense to me.
It doesn't make any sense to me either.
That's what it looks like. They said, okay, mostly compliant, 81 to 99%, 71.1%, and fully compliant, 11%. If you add all those together, that's supposed to be 85.2%. But I don't understand, maybe I need to get on the Twitter and find somebody from Verizon Data Breach or PCI who will come on the show and talk about that. It just, I don't get it.
Again, the math thing just gets me.
Yeah, but
well, it also said the vast majority of organizations struggle to provide evidence of compliance. They struggle to provide evidence. In other words, they're not thinking PCI all year long. Okay? Mm-hmm. PCI rolls around, it's PCI time. Well, what about those logs that we were supposed to be doing 8 months ago? Oh, crap. We need that. So that's I think a big hit right there is you have to be PCI compliant the entire year, not just that 1 month where you've got the auditor walking around your office.
Yeah. Well, that's why they're trying to make version 3. They're trying to make it so that it's part of your business process. They keep touting that business as usual bit where they're saying, hey, everything you do, all your change management, everything should have. The next question should be, okay, how are we doing this so that we're compliant with PCI? Which is a good idea if you're not doing that normally. If you're just saying, oh yeah, let's go and do ABC, and then you're coming back, oh yeah, okay, so we need to add D, F, and J because otherwise we're not compliant with PCI.
Yeah.
I have the same argument about security because, okay, let me go here. So you got PCI, and we've established the PCI is a compliance level or a minimum security level. So you go in, you're not compliant with PCI, so you spend all this time getting up to PCI standards.
PCI compliance validation means that a company has been given an unbiased, independent assessment that it's meeting the baseline standards in securing credit card and debit data.
Okay, this interruption was brought to you by Brian Betcher. But, okay, so you make your compliance. You get blessed by the auditor. You're doing everything to be compliant.
Okay, good.
Now, you want to go beyond that. You want to go beyond PCI, and you want to make it so that your ship is tighter than it should be. If you don't go to that place to begin with, the changes that you've made with PCI, you're only going to go back later and spend more time being more secure. So you've put something into place and you've got A and B. So you go, okay, we've done A and B and we're compliant. We want to make it, A, B, and C. So now you got to go back to the same people that you've spent all this time and probably gaining enmity here, getting them to do A and B, and now you're making them do C. Instead of making them do A, B, and C in the first place, which makes you A, more secure, and B, PCI compliant.
Yeah, I guess it depends on your situation, though, because, a lot of people can't go from A to C because it's too big a step. You need to implement baby steps.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you're going to spend almost double your time going from, it seems like it's more inefficient to not shoot for more secure than it is to be PCI compliant.
Yeah. Again, it depends on your situation. Yeah, if you make huge steps in the realm of security, then maybe your level of access, you may have overstepped your bounds and you don't know it yet.
Well, the other thing is it's hard to justify security once you've made PCI. Because if your financial bean counters are like, okay, we are only, we're PCI compliant. Why do we need to buy you this additional bell or whistle? Well, make us more secure doing A, B, and C. And they said, oh, well, we're already PCI compliant. We need a better justification more other than, we're going to be more secure.
That's why you have to be tactful when you're getting, like, say you want C, but B is going to get you compliant.
Yeah.
Well, B cost $50,000, C cost $80,000. Go ahead and get C. I mean, I guess that makes your argument.
Well, yeah, but what if the bean counter's like, well, we don't need C because...
How are they going to know? They're bean counters. You're the expert.
So submitting justifications, if they don't take your justifications, then you're just kind of stuck.
Well, they're going to have to be compliant, right?
Well, at least to get you to level B, yeah.
Well, what if they don't know level B exists? So
That's true.
use it as leverage.
Yeah.
Compliance can be a good thing if you use it to your advantage.
I would be interested to hear feedback from security professionals who work with their compliance folks and find out if once they become compliant with PCI or with SSAE 16 or with HIPAA, do they continue to get help from their compliance people if it goes beyond HIPAA compliance or SSAE 16?
Yeah.
That would be an interesting question.
Yeah. Huh.
If you're a security professional and you work with compliance people as well, do you find that you don't get help from the compliance people if what you're trying to implement or do goes beyond compliance and makes you more secure? Tweet me up. I would appreciate any kind of feedback. I probably will not receive any. It's cool. No, that's negative. I'm not going to be negative. That's what Phil told me. Got to be positive. Got to keep positive mental attitude. So I look forward to your feedback. All right, so I think we're almost done here. I'm going to the Verizon report is 56 pages of awesomeness. It probably reads like an RFC in many places, or it reads like a comedy of errors in many places.
If you stay up past your bedtime, there it is.
Yeah, cure for insomnia in this case. They do go through and they do explain how the requirements are evolving. I don't know if that was how they did it last year with 3.0, but they do talk about how PCI 3.0 will change next year or change that specific part next year, which I thought was kind of interesting. They're saying, let's see, Control 3.2 has been updated to require all data is rendered unrecoverable upon completion of an authorization process. Oh, that's a big one. So basically it's once you make the transaction, the people who ran the transaction can't get it back anymore. So I guess they're helping to reduce, fraud at stores. So once you run the card, it's not easy for you to go back into the POS and gain the prior transaction. Because, you do that. You go into, I go into Hot Topic quite a bit, and because I'm a big Hot Topic fan, run my card and then find out that somebody at Hot Topic has used my card to buy a ton of stuff. So
is that right? I thought you were going to say you walk into a store and then you take the pause home to review one of the transactions that you ran prior.
No, I can't do that. That would be fun though. That would be fun. So they go through and they break it down by, the different requirements, how everybody's stacked up against it. If you want to read it, it's good. It's a lot of good information. And they also, at the end of it, they talk about the payment card application security standards, which I didn't even know existed. And then there's a point-to-point encryption standard. So like if you go to an Apple store or a Microsoft store, or somebody uses Square for their credit card processing, technically they're supposed to use some kind of end-to-end encryption, like point-to-point encryption. So when you go in there and they don't have cash registers and the Apple guy just swipes your card in his fancy little app on his iPhone or iTablet or whatever the hell they call them now. I know, right? So they have to have a validated P2P solution, encryption solution, so that people can't sniff the wireless traffic and gain that kind of ability. So other than that was it for the 2014 version. If you have any feedback, please let us know. We're on Twitter, LinkedIn, Google+. I just added a bunch of people on Google+. I'm on Facebook, but you got to find me.
Breaking Down Security does not endorse the following: OpenVOS, Risky Business, Tripwire, Paul Security Weekly, and Ignorant Individuals.
Did you add that last one for me, or what was that?
Well, you said 2% of the people were ignorant. Or did I say that?
I believe it might have been you, maybe. Anywho, what's with all the legalese, man? Did you get hit?
I just want to make sure
did you
that,
get hit with a legal bat or something? Did you get your Cracker Jack lawyer card?
Lenny told me.
Oh, Lenny, right. We got to have him on. He sounds like a very interesting dude.
He is.
So, all right. We appreciate you guys listening. Tell your friends. Like I said, we're on Twitter at Brian Break. You can follow us on there. And I guess that's it for episode 13 of the Breaking Down Security podcast. You have a great week, and we'll see you later.
Bye-bye.